Faithful John. In a kingdom of green hills and sparkling rivers lived a loyal servant named John. He had served the old king his whole life. When the king passed away on a quiet evening, young Prince Alaric was heartbroken. He stood by his father's empty throne, feeling small and afraid. Faithful John knelt beside him. "Do not weep, my prince," he said softly. "I served your father, and now I will serve you. I will always protect you, my king." Years passed, and Prince Alaric grew into a wise and just king. His people loved him, but John saw a loneliness in his eyes. The king often heard tales from traveling merchants about the beautiful and kind Princess Aurelia of the Golden Castle, whose laughter was said to make flowers bloom. A warmth grew in King Alaric's heart whenever he heard her name. One morning, King Alaric rolled up his maps. "John," he declared, his eyes shining with purpose, "I must meet this Princess Aurelia. I feel she is my destiny." Faithful John smiled. "Then we shall go, my king," he said. "I will prepare for the journey at once." He packed trunks with the finest silks, jewels, and gifts worthy of a princess. Their journey began under a bright blue sky. They rode through whispering forests and across wide, sun-drenched plains. Each evening, they would make camp, and King Alaric would speak of his hopes for the future, while John would share stories of the king's father, keeping his memory alive. Their bond of friendship grew stronger with every mile. At last, they saw it in the distance, the Golden Castle, its towers shimmering in the sun like spun gold. As they approached, King Alaric's confidence wavered. "What if she does not like me, John?" he worried. John dismounted and stood by the king's horse. "Any woman would be lucky to have a king with a heart as true as yours," he said firmly. King Alaric was welcomed into the Golden Castle. When he finally met Princess Aurelia in the royal gardens, he found that the stories were true. Her kindness shone from her eyes, and her laughter was like music. They walked among the roses for hours, talking as if they had known each other forever. It did not take long for King Alaric to know his heart. He asked for Princess Aurelia's hand in marriage, and she joyfully accepted. The Golden Castle was filled with music and celebration for a week. King Alaric had never been happier, and he was overjoyed to bring his new bride back to his own kingdom. The journey home was full of happiness. One night, as the king and his new queen slept peacefully in their tent, Faithful John stood guard outside. The moon was full and bright. Suddenly, he heard a harsh cawing sound and looked up to see 3 large black ravens perched on the branch of a dead tree, their eyes gleaming like beads. "The king has won his bride," croaked the first raven. "They ride a magnificent white horse, a gift from her father. But that horse is wild of spirit. It will bolt and carry them both over the high cliff before they reach the kingdom." John's blood ran cold as he listened. "And if someone stops that," cawed the second raven, its voice like grinding stones, "a wedding robe of shimmering gold will be presented to the king upon his arrival. But it is woven with a thread of deadly poison. If he puts it on, he will fall down dead instantly." "And if he escapes even that," rasped the third raven, "his bride will collapse in a death-like sleep during the wedding feast. Only 3 drops of her own blood upon her lips can revive her. But beware. The man who knows this and tells the secret will be turned to stone from his toes to the top of his head." The ravens then flew off into the darkness, leaving John trembling with a terrible choice. The next day, as they rode near a deep ravine, the prophecy came true. The magnificent white horse suddenly reared, its eyes wild, and bolted straight for the cliff's edge. Queen Aurelia screamed. Without a second's thought, Faithful John drew his bow and let an arrow fly. The horse fell, just steps from the precipice, saving the king and queen. King Alaric rushed to his wife's side, ensuring she was unharmed. Once he saw she was safe, he turned on John, his face filled with fury and confusion. "John, that was a gift. You have killed the finest horse in the world." "Why?" John could not speak the reason. He simply lowered his bow and bowed his head in silence, his heart aching. They completed their journey in silence and suspicion. When they arrived at the castle, King Alaric ordered John to stay out of his sight. The preparations for the royal wedding and coronation began, but a dark cloud hung over the celebration. John remained in his chambers, his heart heavy, knowing two dangers still remained. On the day of the wedding, the court was assembled. As a gesture of peace, a neighboring duke presented the king with a wedding robe of pure, shimmering gold. It was the most beautiful garment anyone had ever seen. King Alaric reached out to take it, his anger at John momentarily forgotten in its splendor. Suddenly, John burst into the throne room. He shoved past the guards and snatched the golden robe from the king's grasp. Before anyone could react, he hurled it into the great fireplace. The robe instantly erupted in a cloud of sickening green-black smoke, shriveling to ash in seconds. The court gasped in horror. "Treason!" roared King Alaric, his face red with rage. "You have gone too far. You are no longer my servant, but my prisoner." He ordered his guards to seize John and lock him in the highest tower. Faithful John did not resist as he was led away. The wedding feast began, but the king could not enjoy it. His heart was a storm of anger and confusion. To lift his spirits, Queen Aurelia rose to dance. She was a vision of grace, but as she twirled, she suddenly grew pale, gasped for air, and collapsed onto the floor. Panic swept through the hall. The royal physicians rushed to the queen's side, but their faces grew grim. They could find no breath, no pulse. "She is gone, Your Majesty," one whispered sadly. King Alaric let out a cry of pure anguish, refusing to believe it. In the tower, John heard the single, terrible toll of the castle bell and knew the final prophecy had come to pass. With strength born of desperation, he broke down the old wooden door of his cell and raced down the winding stairs, his heart pounding with the need to save the queen and his king. He burst into the queen's chambers, where she lay on her bed, pale and still as a marble statue. He gently pushed past the weeping handmaidens. He took a tiny, sharp pin from the queen's own dress, his hand steady despite his racing heart. He knew what the king would think if he were found. Just as he pricked the queen's finger and let the third drop of blood fall onto her lips, the chamber doors crashed open. King Alaric stood there, his sword drawn, his eyes blazing with madness and grief. He saw John, the pin, the blood on his wife's lips, and believed the worst. "Monster!" he screamed. "You have finally killed her." "Seize him!" the king commanded his guards. As they dragged John away, he finally broke his long silence. "My king, you must listen," he cried. He told them everything about the 3 ravens on the journey and the terrible prophecies they foretold. As he spoke of the final secret, he felt a cold numbness creep into his feet. The color was returning to Queen Aurelia's cheeks. She stirred and sat up, alive and well. She and the king stared as faithful John finished his story. "I did it all to protect you," he whispered, his voice growing faint. As his last word left his lips, the gray stone consumed him completely, freezing him into a statue, a single, silent tear carved on his cheek. Years passed. The king and queen had 2 beautiful children, but a shadow of sadness always remained in the king's heart. Every day, he would visit the statue in the garden. One morning, weeping, he laid his hand on the cold stone and said, "I misunderstood you, my truest friend. I would give my own kingdom to have you back." At these words of ultimate sacrifice and love, a crack appeared in the stone. It crumbled away, and faithful John stepped out, alive and whole. The king embraced him, and the entire kingdom celebrated the return of the man whose loyalty had been stronger than any curse.